If you'd like to join the ranks of Patreons and sponsor the show, head over to patreon.com/Cellar Door Skeptics. For less than a 20-ounce soda or an energy drink each week, you can help sponsor us, the hosts, and our charity of choice. Patreon helps Cellar Door Skeptics create better content, become better activists, and it's going to help you stay healthier by drinking one less soda or one less energy drink each week. Click the link in the notes of the show to sponsor us today because we bring the discussion with the sources.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
Welcome to episode 148. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for another Cellar Door Skeptics. Tonight we have an amazing episode for you. Hannah's a little drunk.
No,
but he's not even on the majority of the episode because we pre-recorded some interviews, and I want to preface this, and start the show out by saying the idea behind this is, what did we commit to? We wanted to do a series of interviewing local politicians to have conversations about how they're going to change Michigan for the better. And
what it's like to be a local politician, like to feel, because there's a lot of us that are interested in local politics, maybe one day doing something in it. So like it kind of like humanizes it a little bit. Yeah.
And last week we met with Heidi Zuninga.
She was awesome.
And she was amazing.
Yeah.
And it was awesome. And that was a great interview. Tonight we have two more interviews, actually from my personal district, and that was kind of part of the discussion point Hannah and I had. And I was like, "Hey, if you don't mind, I'm going to take these alone. This is my personal district. This what they're going to do, yes, will influence your life too, but they're dealing specifically with problems inside of my neighborhood." And I wanted to have the conversation with them only because I felt that we need to get...
They're underdogs, man.
Get Ottawa Democrats out there,
Yeah.
And I wanted to have the conversation with them about, what they could do for my community. And so I met with Janae Schipper, and Christopher Banks, and we talked through quite a bit of how they decided they wanted to run for politics, where they're at, and how they could separate their religious viewpoints from their political viewpoints. And, it's amazing because, a lot of people have been demonizing Hillary lately, right? It's a big thing in the media. They've done it for 2 years now. It seems to be a GOP, discussion point all across the board. And it was kind of fun to talk to some local Democrats about, to the point of how they can support her, how you can support a local organization that will be more progressive than a GOP organization and will help change the state from a red state to a blue state, which will eventually lead us to either a three-party system or the Democrats are going to have to go more progressive. One of the two things are going to happen. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, we could see a shift back towards the Democratic direction that we were seeing. There was some trending towards a little bit more towards the left in the early 90s, and then William Jefferson Clinton decided he wanted to go a little bit more centric and economic and went full big business, and so we saw basically the entire system start shifting back to the right a little bit. And I would say right now, like where we are across both parties is kind of that centrist Reagan era. Like it just seems like everybody is a little bit conservative, and it's kind of frustrating for the people who are on the left. And it's nice to hear, from pretty progressive Democrats on the West Michigan side of the state that I don't think are getting that much attention. that's one of the reasons why we wanted to push this out there. Is just like, this is Chris's district, and I had all kinds of scheduling issues, but also this is his world, this is his space, and it's definitely something that he has more personal connection to. So it's just something. It's just a great conversation, and it's nice to just try the best we can to give a platform, because that's what the whole point of this is, like, to bring that that message out there and kind of spread it around a little bit. I know our viewer base isn't super huge, but we anything that we can do to help out, that's kind of what we do, because we don't have a whole lot of time with the blue collar working class lives that we have. It's nice to just give somebody something.
And it's not about being huge. It's about the fact that we love every single one of our listeners, unless you're a Trumpite. Then we're just gonna make fun of you. You can listen, but we're not gonna. I'm not gonna restrict what I say to make you feel better. But
I always invite them to get into conversations. I had a full-on troll messaging me today online, and it's just like, okay, bring it on. Go ahead and show me if you say both parties are equally bad, because there was a GOP committeeman who basically said that a woman was a Native American lesbian kickboxer. And he was just like, we're going to knock her out of this system or whatever. Just like something incredibly terrible. And he was like, oh, both parties are equally as bad. All politics are garbage. And I was like, fine. Give me my Democratic representative who has said something that horrible. And I will happily give you that broad swipe brush across both sides of the political system. And then he removed himself from that and started sending me direct messages of Breitbart things where they're making fun of Antifa, which is hilarious, because I would think that most conservatives would be anti-fascist, but they seem to have embraced a totalitarian, authoritarian regime of late. So it's nice to hear the progressive side, and especially coming from West Michigan. I mean, we don't hear it too much, so I'm happy about it. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to be involved, but they are pretty good conversations.
So without further ado, we have Jeanette Schipper running for Michigan State Senate of the 30th District. Jeanette, welcome to the show. It's kind of funny, in the pre-show, we talked a little bit about your background and kind of how you got into politics, and we talked about you either being a minister or being involved in ministry in some way, shape, or form. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I happen to be employed at a seminary, and I absolutely love it. And the last 2 years, it just happened to be the year of the election, was that fall I had begun taking my seminary courses. And little did I know that was actually so helpful for me in processing a lot of what I was feeling after the election. So one of the first courses that I took was called Transforming Conflict from the Inside Out.
Oh, wow.
And it really helped unpack your feelings and your needs. And we really discussed enemy images. And that was so important because it gave me insight in how easy it is for anyone to dehumanize another person and consider them an enemy. And then we create these images of them that strips that humanity from them. So we see that happening quite frequently in our current context of how we talk about immigrants, how people of color are talked about, as well as oftentimes women. And so it was really important for me to understand how I can also do that on a whole nother end, thinking particularly at that time, Donald Trump, you know, he was that enemy image. And so to bring humanity back to him and understand that he's also an image bearer of God, it was really important for me to go through that class at that time. And I had no idea that I would end up in politics 2 years later.
Yeah, and it's kind of exciting. I went through some of your bio. You serve on the Lakeside Clubhouse and Survivor Council for the Center for Women in Transition.
Yes.
And that's actually a very important for my family. That's a very important center. just seeing that on there, you kind of sit here and you go, well, who is your competition? What is he serving on? What is he looking at? Yes, you have a seminary degree, but you're not sitting here only working at a church. You're out and about actually working in the community, doing things to help anybody in the community, whether they're religious or not.
Right. Well, first of all, I haven't actually earned a degree. I'm a student still studying, and I do work at the seminary. But I also believe in a separation of church and state, and that's very, very important. Because my faith is important to me. I can only imagine it's is equally important to somebody else what they believe in, whether it's a Christian faith or not, or even a non-faith. I think that it's very important that that separation exists. But what's more important is how we live out our lives. And so for me, elevating the voices of vulnerable people, whether that be through being a board member of the Lakeside Clubhouse, or whether that be through being on the Survivors Council for the Center for Women in Transition, I feel it's really important in elevating voices of people that tend to be ignored or pushed to the margins.
Yeah. And that's kind of, we were very shocked, and I guess we probably shouldn't have been, but we were very shocked 2 years ago with who got into office, right? Right. I guess I didn't go to seminary school, and deal with a coping mechanism. We screamed at the computer for a while. And then this year we decided, well, now it's time to get out. How do we get out? So this year we've tried to focus at least one segment every episode or every other episode this year on having conversations about how to change the community. And, one of the themes that we've been noticing is we can complain all we want about a two-party system. We can complain all we want about how everything's going on a federal level. But if we can't start locally, we'll never be able to get to the federal level. And it's kind of one of those, it's kind of funny because, one of my daughters asked if you were running for the president. And it's like, no, honey, that's not this year. But that doesn't mean in, 6 years she can.
Right.
So
certainly, it's important that wherever we're at, whatever we're doing, that we elevate our voices in using the gifts that we have. So at this point, your talent is your radio. And so for you to be able to utilize that field and lift those voices, the voices of the candidates, that's really important.
Yeah. And so, as we talk with you, again, I'm a little excited because you're in my district, but, some of the things that, your competition that you're going up against is somebody that, in my opinion, should no longer be in politics. And I don't say that just because I disagree with him. I do disagree with his viewpoints, don't get me wrong. But when you've ran and you've served in Michigan for 3 terms already, and now you flip-flop. Now you're not going to be in the House. Now you want to be in the Senate. The first question I have is isn't it time for other voices to come about? And I have a really hard time with people who, to me, it just feels like a dynasty. He just wants to be able to continue to get paid to do what he feels is good for society. And instead of allowing new voices to come in that may have other opinions.
Yeah, the politics have been monopolized by the same people, particularly in West Michigan, the same type of people, the same type of voice for decades. And this, and if I get elected as state senator to represent District 30, this will be a historic win for us. And this will be the first time that Ottawa County has said that we are ready for a new voice. And I would be honored to be that new voice.
Yeah. And I've gone, and that's the thing here too. I've lived in Michigan since I was 15. I'm actually originally from Ohio. And, for me, it's been a trip, I guess, especially moving out into Zealand. It's ultra conservative around here, in fairness. And that's weird for me, because I lived in Wyoming, where it was there was a lot bigger of a mix for a while, and I didn't feel the extreme push to always go red like I do in this side of the state. So as we begin, talking, what are some of your goals and some of the reasons that you want to make a difference for this side of the state?
Yeah, I think number one, it's our voices. Voices like mine that haven't been heard, voices like mine that continue to be ignored. And for me, it really started out with my advocacy for mental health and coming up against the barriers and trying to access my own mental health coverage for my family members. And in doing that, during a crisis, we've had to get a second mortgage on our home to make sure that my child received the mental health care that she deserved, and that we as family members knew what was important for her life. And I don't want anyone else to have to go through what we did. It was a lot of stress. It's already emotionally taxing when you're dealing with a crisis with a family member, and then to have to try to prove that you need the help. People that go into emergency room with physical ailments, they don't come up against this kind of discrimination of healthcare. But people that are experiencing mental health crisis, they are discriminated at twice the rate that somebody with a non-mental health crisis is. And I want to create policies that hold these companies accountable and make them have to really spell out why they are denying someone coverage. I want to be able to make things easier for family members when there's when your case goes to third-party review, that both parties should have access to that reviewer, not just the one that sends it to the third-party review. Because at that point, you don't know exactly what documents that have been sent on for that decision. So mental health is something that's really important to me. It's important that we're funding it. It's important that there's somebody in the state level advocating for expansion of that, as well as bringing some facilities here, creating a residential facility and top-of-the-line brain illness research. I really think that Michigan can be on the cutting edge of some things when it comes to mental health and brain illness research. So that's one of my priorities as a state legislator. The second thing I want to make sure that we do is I will fight fiercely for our public schools. And when I say fighting fiercely, is what I mean is protecting the dollars, the tax dollars, and making sure that they stay in the public education system, and making sure that that general fund is not rated. Now, if we get enough Democrats elected, then we can certainly do that. We can make sure that that general fund is not rated and that our public education is being adequately funded. It's all going to matter on who we elect, unfortunately, because the DeVos agenda is going to continue to move forward, which gives a lot of our money to for-profit charter schools, which takes millions of dollars and funnels it from the public education system into private school systems with no government oversight in there. And our children are the ones losing out, and our teachers are the ones losing out. We could be using that money, those millions of dollars, to actually provide mental health services in our schools, or to actually provide adequate pay for our teachers, to reduce the number of students in a classroom, to provide reading specialists. You name it, that money could be used in our public schools to make our public schools better. And that's something that I will fight for legislatively.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing. It feels like, even since the 90s, that we've seen the education budget not grow, continue to be robbed. My sister's a teacher, and she has her master's degree, and I think she's taught for over 10 years at different schools. And some of the stuff that she talks about and different things like that, where she goes, "Hey, I had to pay for this today," and it's like, well, the schools don't pay for any of that. She's like, no, she's like, we have kids that come in sometimes and they haven't eaten. And, so she keeps snacks in her drawer for different things like that. And it is rather disgusting, in my opinion, that, you would think if we wanted to make America great again, right? The first thing we would look at is education, because if you can't educate people, you're not going to have future voters that care,
Right. Yeah. And education is so, so important. It's very critical, and we need to be proactive instead of reactive. So at this point, we currently have this third grade reading bill, and which if a child cannot read to grade level by third grade, then they can be held back. And I'm thinking, why are we not expanding universal pre-K to make sure every child is getting a preschool education where they can begin to learn the basics and foundations to reading, and incorporate a literacy program that connects with the kids as soon as they hit kindergarten to assure that by the end of first grade they are reading at reading level. We need to be proactive rather than reactive, and where we think we're going to hold a child back from their class. I think we can do better.
Yeah. And I don't think your opponent feels the same way.
No, the Republican candidates, they're all in line with the DeVos agenda. I think a lot of folks would like to see our education. A lot of folks that follow the DeVos agenda, those folks want to see our education privatized, and that is really scary for a lot of folks because we're looking at those disenfranchised would be the ones left behind, the people of color, the disabled, the those in poverty, and individuals that are struggling with their emotional health. And there's so many folks that'll be left behind, our LGBTQ students, if our education system becomes a privatized institution. And then, we should be concerned about what people are trying to take out of our school system right now as far as the education that our students need to learn. We need to have an appropriate sexual education program. We need to make sure that we are giving teaching appropriate history, accurate history. And there's so much that we need to make sure that we are teaching our children. And so our public education and protecting the public education is imperative so that every child in Michigan has an opportunity to learn, to be educated, to be the best, work to their best potential that they can, so that they can go on into whether that be a trade school or a four-year college, that they'll be able to prepare themselves and support themselves and contribute back to our economy.
Yeah, and we talk about the mental health issues, and a lot of people, and this is kind of this is the thing where I always sit there and say I'm pretty far left, honestly, this is and I'm pretty anti-gun. I won't say that all guns should be 100% banned, blah blah blah, but to me, if anybody wants to reach across the aisle, what's the first thing that we could look at that would help before we just start taking guns away and putting all these restrictions in place? Mental health. Where's our mental health care system that would help it? Oh, and by the way, we have a GOP, governor, and we have a majority House and Senate. And here's the deal. What are they looking to do for Medicaid and all these other things? They don't want to use the extension from, the Affordable Health Care Act. And that's scary because we don't have an equalized economy that we're watching the Michigan economy, and you can watch the income, level disappear.
Yes, there's a huge discrepancy in our income level. And currently, in Ottawa County alone, 62% of wage earners make under $20 an hour. And 2/3 of the wage earners make under $15 an hour. And we have an affordable housing issue in Ottawa County. I've been attending a lot of discussions recently around affordable housing, and you can't talk about affordable housing without talking about living wages. Yeah,
and it's kind of funny. Amazon got pressure, and I don't want to say that yes, I like Bernie and all, but I don't really want to sit there and say, hey, that's really the big reason Amazon did it. It's because public pressure got put on that company. And that dude's a multi-billionaire, right? And so for him, if he doesn't change a little bit, so he wants to put everybody at $15 an hour. to me, the excitement should be is when businesses in Michigan say, I'm going to follow that. That's when I'm going to get excited. I'm glad a national company, and in fairness, they are putting a service center in Michigan that they'll hire at $15 an hour and up. Great. But why? When is the rest of the companies going to do that? If again we want to reach across the aisle, why are we not reaching across the aisle by allowing tax credits to companies that want to raise the wages of their employees? We credit them for creating jobs, but hey, you could create as many $8 an hour jobs as you want. That's not going to benefit society.
Yeah, when the government has to then subsidize the wages of that company's workers, and that company's getting already tax subsidies, basically that company is being built on the government. And so there should be an expectation that these corporations are paying their employees living wages so that the employees don't have to live off from government assistance. And in all honesty, somebody shouldn't have to go out and get a second job either. A 40-hour week job should be able to pay somebody's bills. And if it doesn't, we really need to look at our economy, our businesses, our business structures, and the inflation that we have, which is very high currently, and think about how we can restructure some things so that all of our families can move forward and thrive together.
Yeah. Wow, it sounds like you're somebody that should be running for office. I think I just heard that. Well, and some of the other disappointing, factors here is getting it out. I believe a lot of the Ottawa County Democrats, they try to get people's names out, but this year it kind of feels like a larger push. I'm hearing more about it. I don't know if I'm paying attention more, but it does feel like there's a bigger push this year, to help replace. And again, if we start on the ground, we start as low as we can, get everybody into the government here, then all it's going to do is turn around and make every one of you all eligible for eventually going to the federal, so we can change it even more.
Yeah, exactly. The Democratic movement certainly has grown this year, and a lot of people have been, they've been woken. They've been awoken. They are realizing, like people like myself, I used to consider myself a conservative. And then 2016 happened. And then I realized I found myself on the other side of some of my Christian community. And I had to wrestle with that. And what did that mean? And so I gladly identify myself as a progressive Christian, as a liberal. If that's what we want to use a label. And for me, all that means is that I believe in a community for all, that there's space for all of us at the table. I believe that a strong economy isn't measured by how well our wealthy are doing. A strong economy is measured by how well are the least of these amongst us doing? Are our most vulnerable individuals, our marginalized individuals in our society, are they thriving? That is when we know that we have met success, when our most vulnerable individuals are thriving. Right now, they're barely surviving. We have 127 families in Holland that are living in a hotel. We currently have 24 families that or 24 individuals that are living in a tent city nearby in the woods. And we have one family, a single mother with children living in a storage unit. This is happening in one of the wealthiest, fastest growing counties in Michigan. And Holland is a very wealthy city that has heated sidewalks that melt our snow, and it has a very beautiful downtown. And we like to give praises to our beaches and our bike paths. And yet we don't know what to do with the vulnerable people in Holland. We have over 100, I don't know the exact number, 150 approximately churches in Holland. And I wonder how many of those churches actually have emergency shelter in their facilities.
Probably none. Or very few.
Yeah. So that's concerning. And that really brings us to, what are our values? What do we value here? We just have built a really beautiful multi-million-dollar civic center, renovated it, and it's gorgeous. But somehow we can't pass a proposal for affordable housing, mixed housing, mixed income housing is what it was. And so I'm in these conversations currently, and I've been hearing from my community, and I'm really proud of the people speaking up in my community, and their concerns are the same of what are we valuing. And we're currently having discussions about doing some projects along the lake shore, beautifying it. And there's none of those pushbacks that you hear when you go to the affordable housing sessions and you hear pushbacks regarding zoning and all of these other obstacles that come in the way. Why is it that we've created so many obstacles to provide housing for people that need it? So I really want to be able to work at the state level to do whatever I can do to remove some of those barriers so that the folks at our city level here and our county level can work to reduce the barriers and have the power to reduce those.
So do you feel that if we do turn this around, do you feel that the Democrats will be able to start passing more comprehensive legislation in the state that will help, focus on this? Is other people's passions, other people that are running in other districts, is their passion similar to that of yours?
Yes, and I think that's a really great thing about the current Democratic movement, is that we each come with our own more pinpointed passion. Like mine is mental health. Dr. Rob Davidson's is overall health care. But we all come with the same value to wanting to create legislation that helps and benefits all of us and not just a few of us. And that's a democratic value, but it really should be a community value. We should all be on board, whether you're a Democrat, Independent, or Republican. It should be a community value that we create legislation that benefits all people that we represent, not just a few. And so that's why it's important to support candidates that are grassroots, because these grassroots candidates like myself, we don't come in with a paid agenda from someone. We are not beholden to corporate or special interest. We are there to serve the people, and every $5, $10, $20, $100 donated to our campaign specifically goes to materials, specifically goes to the campaign itself, and we don't overspend. We don't have that to overspend. We are spending exactly what we need to win.
Yeah. Going back real quick, you were talking about, how you found yourself kind of distancing from that conservative Christian view or community. And do you feel that, and again, I'm an outsider to that, I'm an atheist, I'm a secular, humanist, but I don't have the same ties. Do you feel, even in West Michigan alone, that you're starting to see the church grasp the fact that they're not actually, and to be nice about it, say they're not actually doing what Jesus taught, right? They're not helping the homeless, the poor. Do you feel that the churches are starting to move towards that direction?
I am encouraged by a few things, and I'll share. If I did not work for a seminary, or I should say at the seminary that I work at, I would not have been able to experience the future of the church. I get a glimpse into the future of what the church will be like, because we are seeing folks come through our building with passions of their own. They have passions for social justice. They have passions for immigrants. They have passion for our environment. They have passions for the needy, and they advocate for that. And that is so amazing to see, and that gives me hope and continues to give me hope for the future of the church. That right now, what we're seeing in the church quite often, and this is the truth, pastors feel their hands tied to the big givers. And you could call that the corporate interests, so to speak. So that's been very hard to watch. You want people to speak truth from the pulpit, and yet they're fearful of speaking that truth, because if they upset those givers, what will happen to their church if families start to leave? And that's a very real thing that a lot of pastors face. But I'm encouraged by those pastors that are speaking the truth. I know a couple churches in the Holland area, Hope Church and UCC Church. They are open churches, and there's a Methodist church as well. They're open. They're inclusive churches that welcomes everybody at the table. And I believe when you set yourself up at the very front end of saying, we believe that everybody has a place here, then you've already set that foundation for people to decide if that's where they want to be or not when it comes to where they're going to worship. So I do think that there is a division in the church, and it is individuals that are, I would say there's a church style that is a bit more of the Old Testament, and there's a church style that's a bit like the New Testament. and so the New Testament kind of church style is really about love, grace, and forgiveness. And that old style is really about rules and order and even condemnation. So we are seeing that even coming out as a little bit of a divide in our church communities. I'm very happy and excited that we had a Vote Common Good that came to our area, and that was a group of Democrats, Independents, and Republicans that are believers, and they came proclaiming the gospel and urging us to vote for the common good of all. And they laid out their biblical reasons why we should be voting currently at this time for our Democratic candidates, so that we can hold this administration in check, and so that we can make sure that we are upholding the humanity of our disabled brothers and sisters, our LGBTQ brothers and sisters, our women, and our children, our immigrants. We need to make sure that we are coming together and really loving and accepting each other. And for me, that is a beautiful message, and that I would like to see all my fellow Christian brothers and sisters hold dear.
Yeah, it's a humanistic viewpoint. It's just seeing the world just a little differently.
It is very much a humanistic viewpoint, and I really believe that that's as a Christian believer, that's exactly what Jesus demonstrated. Though Jesus demonstrated that bringing that vulnerable person, basically that was dehumanized, sitting outside begging, brought healing and brought that person's story to the forefront. That person's story becomes a story that we learn about in the Bible.
Yeah.
Oh, I better plug my phone in. But yeah, it's really the judgment not up to us. Our job was never to judge. That was never put upon us.
Yeah. one of the other, as we get close to the end of the show, one of the things that's somewhat exciting for me too is that there's more minorities running for office finally. And it's kind of funny because we talked with Heidi and she's running against Luke Meerman, and his campaign. I had a couple of tweets or something, and his campaign manager wasn't super fond of. And they're not attacking Luke because I don't. As much as I would like to just attack all the opponents, at some point, the point of this show and the point of having the conversations is how can we get your viewpoint out? What's the point of talking about his faults? We should just know that his agenda doesn't support the same humanistic stance ours does. And one of the exciting things was, we were talking. It's like yeah, he was hand selected. Oh, and by the way, the GOP have won Ottawa County. So how easy is it for us, to see that? If you want to make a bigger miracle, why don't we, you want to say the God's on your side? Well, I'm sorry, but I would rather see, a minority or somebody that has that humanistic, tendency actually get voted in. It would be more of a, I guess it's not unprecedented, but it's something that actually doesn't happen as much over here in Ottawa County. It's just, that's definitely not a thing that happens every day. There's a lot of white men in office over here.
There is a lot of white men in office. Well, currently, at the state level, we only have 4 women out of, I believe, 63 or 65. I should know this number. State senators. We have 60-something state senators. Only 4 of them are women. 4 women to be at the table making legislation, decisions, bringing perspective to the discussion. Only 4. How does that represent me in the state of Michigan? How does that represent me if there's never a woman here in Ottawa County that understands what it means to be a survivor of domestic violence, that understands how difficult it is to rebuild your life, to find affordable housing and living wages while trying to be a single mom? We need to have folks that bring the lens of not being born behind that white picket fence, but that truly understand what it means, that no, we cannot just pull ourselves up with our bootstraps without the help of our community. And community is so important because we are interdependent upon one another. We are not completely dependent from each other. And it's important that we all move forward together. And that's why I feel like it's important that we have folks in Lansing that bring a whole nother lens and perspective. And I do. As a survivor of domestic violence, as a childhood trauma abuse survivor, as someone who has had to rebuild her life, who has had to stay in a shelter, I understand what it takes to get out, and I couldn't have done it myself. I needed the programs that were those safety nets that are there. I didn't abuse those safety nets. I used them to help me get up out of my situation so that I could contribute back to our society, and I certainly have. But we can't make it so difficult where people can't get out. When they get close enough and we just pull that safety net just back a little more, that it makes it impossible. So I'm a big believer that we need to have affordable housing. We need to have options for to help people reclaim and rebuild their lives. So it's really important that we decriminalize mental health and substance abuse issues. It's not that we don't have money. Money's there. Once again, the question is, what do we value? For-profit prisons? So are we valuing incarceration, or do we value rehabilitation? Because $35,000 for one person for 1 year to be incarcerated, that money could go to the rehabilitation of that person that's being in prison for their mental health, untreated mental health, or that person that is being in prison for their untreated substance abuse. We just need to use our money smarter, and currently our tax dollars are paying for the prison system to profit when we could be paying for people to be rehabilitated and to reclaim their lives and to contribute back to our economy.
Exactly. So as we close, tell everybody a couple of things: where they can find you and how they can help support your campaign to get you in office in the next month.
Yes, so you can go to my website, JeanetteForSenate.com, JeanetteFor Senate.com, and my email, JeanetteForSenate@gmail.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Jeanette Schipper, SCHIPPER, and I'm on Twitter as well. And I would love to invite the women. I will have a Women Uniting event coming up on October 27. Stay tuned. We're just working on these details right now, but it's going to be a day where women across Ottawa County get together, and we are going to canvass. We're going to knock on doors, and I will launch I'll be launching in Zeeland and Holland and Grand Haven and Hudsonville and Jenison and all over Ottawa County. And then we'll come together in the evening for a time of celebration and a time for women to lift up their voices and to share with me and share with one another the things that they're advocating for. I want to give them a platform to use their voice.
Awesome. Jeanette, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It was very amazing and lovely to talk with you. All the links that you mentioned will be in the description of the show, as well as there will be a link that you can also donate. As she said at the beginning, hey, $5, $10, even $20 is a small donation, can help go a long ways.
Yes, thank you. You can donate to my website or my Facebook.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining the show tonight, and have a lovely evening.
Wonderful. Thanks. You too.
Thank you, Jeanette Schipper, for joining us tonight. Jeanette Schipper is running for the 30th District for the Michigan Senate. We had a great conversation with her, but please stay tuned, because when we come back from this really quick break, we're going to be talking with Christopher Banks of the 90th District for the House of Representatives. We'll be right back.
Like what you're hearing? Check out more Cellar Door Skeptics every week right here on Spreaker and iTunes. Make sure you come back and check out new episodes with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. And always, remember, prepare for the revolution.
As we continue on, the second part of the show, I interviewed a gentleman named Christopher Banks. He's running for the Michigan House of Representatives 90th District seat. And again, this specific candidate actually represents my area. He's running against a current incumbent Republican. And it was a really, really good discussion that I got to have with him about life, about the reason he wanted to run for the House of Representatives, and what he feels he could help change within Michigan. To begin with, even though it says Democrat in the name, this is Michigan, this is Ottawa County, and I kind of wanted to talk with him a little bit about whether he grew up a Republican, whether he grew up a Democrat, and kind of where he sits today. Please welcome to the show, Christopher Banks. Christopher, welcome to the show. As we start out, tell us whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, sir.
The Democratic Party is ideally close to what I believe, and because at the end of the day, it's about the people, and that's what I believe government is there to do, is to serve the people. It's not about religion, even though I personally believe in God. And I believe, as Americans, we have that right. And for me personally, it is still a separation of church and state. Because if you follow the Bible as it really is, what it really comes down to is a few things. And a few things is simply in order to prove that you love God, you love people, regardless to if you agree with them or not. And then secondly, and agreement and loving them don't mean that you go along with everything they say and do everything they want you to do. What that means is you respect them enough to appreciate their opinion. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And let that be, because at the end of the day, it takes iron to sharpen iron. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, you may come up with a perspective that I never even thought about and get me to think higher. And that's really what it's about. And then secondly, how can you say, people say they love God, but the Bible says, how do you love God if you don't love people? So I don't understand how you can take advantage of people and determine that only a certain group is acceptable, but not all. Because at the end of the day, God give you a choice. It's not for me to decide, for you in terms of what your personal beliefs are and whatnot. Like, it's not your decision to decide if I get to believe or not. Or, even like someone told me, they said, well, if you say you believe in God, how is it that you accept gay marriage? For example. I said, well, first of all, what does that have to do with me?
Yeah.
I mean, personally, am I marrying them? Hello, somebody. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like me coming to your house telling you that you can't sleep with your wife. That's ridiculous. You know, uh, you need to mind your business. That is not your business. Who someone choose to be with is their decision. It's not my decision. It is absolutely a distinction between what they call church and state.
Yeah.
And we have to be clear about that. And that's really what it's about. Because for me, America is an idea. It's an ideal, what we should be. Because when they wrote the Constitution, they weren't thinking of people that look like me. We
No.
were considered, you know what I mean? So we weren't even considered a man. Even though I am all day, I wasn't considered a man. I was considered as property. So when they were saying you have equal rights, they weren't talking about me. But see, the ideal was correct. And so in time, progression happens where you get to the ideal of what the words meant, not what the intent was at the time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and now because of that, I'm actually able to reap the benefit. And
that,
you as well.
well, yeah. And what's amazing, in my opinion, what's amazing, just your attitude right there, right? A lot of people could say, hey, I want, religion to be this big thing in government, right? That this is my personal thing. For example, Heidi's competition, I guess, is the nicest way to say it. If we have to love everybody, I guess now you're trying to get me to be a better person, right?
But you know what? But see, like I said, Chris, we're supposed to be salt. At the end of the day, to be honest with you, I never thought I would be running for office. I never thought in a million years that I would be running for office. Now, I've always had a mindset of what's going on and being aware of what's happening, and and more importantly, how it affects me in a selfish way. But then in my heart, I'm an advocate for people. So I don't like to see anybody being mistreated in any kind of way, even though it's not my business. Somehow it becomes my business where I'm thinking a thought or I'm actually speaking out, you know what I mean? Or taking a stand for someone that can't stand for themselves. So that's what really brought me here, to this place. But again, because of what I understand from the Bible, it is clear to me. He said, I said before you good and evil and you choose. I don't get to decide for you. You choose for yourself. You know what I mean? So it's not muddy for me at all. Like someone said, well, how can you say you love God and you accept abortion? Well, it's simple for me, because first of all, there's all kind of circumstances. It's not just one side. You know what I mean? You have to look at the dimension of it all. First of all, you have women that are being raped. You have women that are being seduced. You have children that are having babies at 9 and 10. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, I'm not birthing the child. The woman is. So who am I to determine that she has to, by law, have this child? If this child is endangering her life, does she have to have the child because there is no abortion? You know, does that 9-year-old that was seduced by the family friend and she's a sexual being and it felt good to her, and now she's pregnant, am I as the parent going to determine that my 9-year-old is going to have a baby? Not going to happen. And no government is going to tell me what I can and cannot do.
Yeah.
But we're always looking at it from the one-sided lens of irresponsibility. You have all these individuals out here having unprotected sex, and then they become pregnant and it's inconvenient. So then they just decide, that they don't want to have their child. But again, these things happen, and at the end of the day, the orphanages are still filled. If you are so Christian and you are so concerned about the children of the world, why are these orphanages filled? Why aren't you adopting these children out? Why aren't they in better circumstances? Because you don't care. What you care about is controlling someone else. That is the problem. And the problem is, the truth of the matter is, you use religion as a club when in actuality, what you're trying to be is God over someone.
Yeah.
And that is not acceptable.
And that's why you're a Democrat, right?
Exactly. I mean, really, that's really what it comes down to. Because, at the end of the day, we know our history. The Democratic Party was the most conservative party in the beginning. 100 plus years ago, I would have never been a part of the Democratic Party. But again, the ideals were correct, just like the Constitution was. And now we have progressed to where we are now in 2018.
Yeah. And which is really awesome that they've changed. They could go a little bit farther, but I'll stick with what I have for now, as long as I don't have to have the other side of it. And kind of part of the conversation we had with Heidi the last time we talked with her was, what do we see as a momentum? I mean, look who got put into the Supreme Court justice, right? No matter what it is going on, think about it this way. If we can replace local governments with at least middle of the road centrists, we'll be doing so much better than we are right now with some of these crazy GOP. And if you look at our state, just the state of Michigan, that we all, when you look at everything that's going on in the state of Michigan, it's like we need some sort of at least a minimum of a balance, if not a full on change. And while you live in Holland, you can see some of the ultra conservatism that runs through this side of the state. I'm in Zealand, so and that's kind of the weird thing, as an atheist, I never thought I'd end up in Zealand, but my wife, she's originally from Zealand. She's not religious, but we got a house. We got a deal on a house. It was, a family type thing. And so it's like, well, it's a nice community. Is it as diverse as I would like? No. Is it politically diverse? Not as much as I thought it was. But in fairness, there's quite a few Rod Davison signs going up in the yards, which is kind of will lead me to a question I get to ask you in a second, because maybe you want to come canvass in Zealand, and I'd be happy to help you canvass in Zealand. But this is your district, right? If there's, I'm on Central. I'm almost dead center Zealand, and there's probably at least 10 Rob Davison signs up. Okay. I bet you there's some supporters that would be interested in having a conversation with you if they don't know who you are already.
Well, you know what? Here's the deal, and I appreciate the help because I need it. I have not really canvassed in Zealand. One of the commissioners and I were supposed to do it, and we haven't done it yet. But I welcome that. So give me some dates, and we can get out there and do it. You know what I mean? For a couple of hours. Because at the end of the day, I know that when people get an opportunity to get to know me, I believe that they will vote for me. The problem that I've been running into is I've planned town hall meetings and tried to promote them. That's why one of the reasons why I'm here tonight with the interview is because I'm trying to get my name out there and get people interested. But I mean, I was there in July for an education forum that was put on by the League of Women Voters, and I thought it went great. I got a lot of positive feedback, but at the end of the day, people are not engaged unless it's like a big name, like a Rob Davidson, because Rob is getting the momentum, which is awesome, and is really helping those of us that in a sense that are in a lower tier than he is to get us all up. So it's a win-win, and obviously this area is starting to progress because even though it's not as diverse as it could be, we're definitely not where we were when I moved here in 1992.
I can imagine.
No, we're nowhere. We are definitely leaps and bounds from where we were in 1992. So again, like I said, it's all about the progression, and all we can do is just wait for the time. But for me, I think what it is people are growing tired. I think people have become complacent, and we were so comfortable as a state as a whole as being represented as Democratic, except for West Michigan, of course, being traditionally red, never a Democrat to win in the state on the state level, the national level in this area. So they were comfortable, and the complacency is what got us in trouble with 2016. And no one thought that Trump would make it through. And everybody was divided on the Democratic side about like what we just talked about between, Bernie and Hillary, because they had their, misfeelings about both,
Oh, yeah.
point. And so that just shows you again where those cracks are that needs to be sealed. And those dividing lines, we have to come together as a whole. Like I've been telling everyone, we need a blue wave in Lansing. The only way it's going to work, we have to have a blue wave in Lansing. We're always talking about bipartisanship, but we've been under Republican rule for a very long time in this state, and it's time for things to change, because people are ready for it. And more people are working class. Everybody has this, oh, I'm middle class, and now you see the erosion of the so-called middle class, when in actuality, to be honest with you, I never saw the middle class. I only saw two classes. Either you're wealthy or you're the working class. You can be a millionaire and still make a wrong decision and be in the poorhouse. But when your money is making money for you and for people that don't exist, you know what I'm saying? That's when you have hit the pinnacle and beyond, and most people are not there. The majority of people in this country is in that 99% that's not there. And they need to wake up. The complacency of it all. We're so busy trying to be socially divided. We're so busy trying to be more than where we are. You know what I mean? And not seeing the reality of it is that we have an erroneous system that is designed to keep us in a place of lack. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's what it is. If you don't go to work, if you don't do something to earn some keep, you're not going to live in that beautiful house with your family. That's what it comes down to. So we all got to get to work, and we all have to do our part. And so, it's so many ideas and so many things that runs across my mind to make it better. But it starts with conversation, and then it moves from conversation to progressive people that want to see it happen and are actively making it happen. So we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And that complacency is what got us here. And so in a sense, I'm thankful that Trump is there in terms of the wake up call. Like, we got a full on apprentice show going on in the White House. You're fired. Now all of these people were so trustworthy when he selected them to help him in his cabinet. Now all of these individuals are now corrupt. What happened? You know what I mean? From Omarosa down to the FBI director to now you have Kavanaugh. in there, regardless to what this woman said about him, and how he dealt with her when they were teenagers and whatnot. It doesn't matter. It's a power play. But as long as you got the wrong people in position, these things are going to happen. And it's not going to get better. It's going to get worse, because Kavanaugh and his cronies, along with Trump, are going to do everything in their power to topple this country, because it's distraction.
Yeah.
And it's the rich getting richer, and they're getting away with it because we're asleep. We got to wake up.
Yeah. And talking about Trump and even just starting here, right? It's refreshing to see you run, right? I'm very excited that somebody, is running. And so I volunteer with a group called Center for Inquiry, and they do basically we go and talk to legislators at the state capitol once a year as a group. And so the encouragement, they give us these huge lists, right? And we have to go we have kind of an agenda, obviously, because, they are a nonprofit, yada, yada, yada. But the agenda is not to push religion out of government specifically, and you can't have your own beliefs. It's just to say, hey, hold on a second. And then we also advocate very heavily for women's rights, for science education. Anyway, so we're there this year. And Danielle Garcia, who happened to be my rep, or I guess I don't consider her my rep.
I'm getting ready to replace her. Yes.
There you go. See?
Go ahead.
she's not in office. She's somewhere on the floor, right? And so you can't make appointments, because if you try and make appointments and they find out who you are, they don't want to see you, especially an atheist group. They're like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
And so I walk in there, and she's got her assistant in there. And, at first he didn't want to give us some time. Then we sat down for about 15 minutes. And I finally said, can I come back this afternoon when she's here and talk with her? That would be what I would like to do. His answer was, you can, but I bet she's busy this afternoon. But she does a town hall in Zeeland one Monday every month.
Right. She does it here in Holland, too.
Yeah. You know when she does the one in Zeeland? 1 p.m. How many working folks can meet that?
No one is able really to see her. Yeah. That's the purpose of it. It's throw the rock, hide your hand type of situation. You know, to give you the perception that we're really here to help you, but we're really not here to help you. That's what I feel that the Republican Party as a whole represent. Of course, you have some that are in their beliefs and they're standing up for what they do, but in general, that's what the party represents. Falsisms. You say that you're conservative. You say that you are representing your constituents. But when you are conveniently unavailable, how are you serving your constituents? These are the questions. People need to be held to the fire. They need to be held accountable. But the thing of it is, on record, I was there, right? But you didn't show up.
Yep.
Even though, you have to work. Or maybe if you work second shift, you're getting ready to go to work. You don't have time for that. If you're on third shift, you're asleep. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Or first shift, you're at work. So, wow, how convenient is that?
So, and you're right. And I messaged her, sent an email, and just expressed my dissatisfaction with, not being able to meet with her. Never got a response. Never once. So, it would be awesome if we could get you and her in a debate. Heck, I'd even host it on the show if I highly doubt she would do that. But if she wanted to, I'd host an open debate with the two of you. Look, you can do Skype now, so we can.
Right.
We can
so
do.
Now what's the problem?
Yeah. and that's the thing. It's kind of the same way with Heidi. When we were talking with her, it's kind of funny because I know her opponent's campaign manager. Personally, I know him, and we don't talk. We don't see each other on Facebook. We don't really see each other outside of maybe once or twice a year at a family gathering and stuff like that. And so I forgot my Twitter is connected to my Facebook. So I posted something about interviewing Heidi, and we should go out and not vote for Luke Meerman because we need to get Heidi. His campaign manager tweeted back at me, and get this. And this is I highly doubt this is exactly what he meant, but he tweeted back at me and says, well, Heidi's too late to the race. She hasn't really shown up to do anything. Oh, and by the way, she just doesn't have the money to get elected. And right there is what sums up the problem. And if I could just get that sound clip and get that to the media and be like, look, this guy's campaign manager is basically saying no other candidate is worth it unless you have money. Now tell me why you want to put that person in office. How is he a person of the people? Or how is his campaign a representation of the people? It's not. All he's doing is taking Roger Victory, right? You know, and using his status and his, I don't want to call it fame, but, you know, his importance in white Michigan, right? To get elected. And that's all they're doing. They're not actually looking at what he believes. They aren't looking at the fact that, you know, I know all sorts of things, you know, that have happened that make Luke a very uncredible individual, you know, but nobody cares. It's all about the money.
Right. Because like you said, at the end of the day, money talks and everything else walks.
Yeah.
You know, that's the mindset. But you know what? Again, it's easy when you're established. It's easy when you have super PACs supporting you. It's easy when people are you're accustomed to winning, you know, and that's really what it is in this area. It's like I'm talking to people and they're claiming that they're Democrat, but they haven't voted. And I know, and personally, I know I've been voting since 1996 myself. I remember the times where there was no Democratic candidate at all. You know what I mean? On the ballot. You know, I looked, I'm like, well, dang it. I mean, there's no Democratic. You know what I mean? So I vote for the president, vote for the Dems that's there, and leave the rest blank. You know? And so I get it. But again, back to what I was saying about us being awake. We have to be awake and be aware of what's happening, Chris. It's just people they are disgruntled and they are disenfranchised and they don't see the worth. And that's what we're trying to convince people to see the worth. You have viable candidates in every seat in this midterm election. And again, like we were just saying, there's people still that don't know I'm there. They don't know that the Ottawa County Dems is right here in Holland. The office is here. We meet once a month. The office is open most of the month. You know, we're hands-on. We provide the numbers. We provide the websites. I'm dealing with people I've had people give to my campaign, but I don't have a lot of money in my campaign. I can afford commercial ads and whatnot. So we do what we can with what we have. I'm a working man. I'm not rich. I never touted that I was. I don't own a commercial farm. I don't own my own business. I'm a working man trying to fight for those that are working, that are in the condition that I'm in, to have real representation. And that's really what it's about. It's not about how many dollars you have. It's about you representing the real people, not a select group. And again, that's what I see the Republicans, and that's what I debate. I have yet to have received an invite for a debate. I met Bradley, my opponent, back in, I think it was in April when we met. He invited me. You know, he sent me a message. You know, I went to the county clerk and, you know, got registered and whatnot. And he just happened to be the Ottawa County treasurer. And, you know, so the clerk gave him my information right away. You know, hey, you have someone running against you, guy. And we talked. And at the end of the day, we decided that may the best man win. Okay. I don't hate him. I'm not one of those, honestly, where I'm going to be trying to tear you down. The debate is about, it's not personal. It's about what the issues are and how we're going to deal with them. You know what I mean? And that's what it comes down to. What is your intention? Because everyone has an agenda. To lie and say that we don't have an agenda, that's ridiculous. Yeah, I have an agenda. Absolutely, I do. I want to see the livable wage change. Because when I look at the records and they say, well, $5 is a poverty level wage, and then $9.25 is the minimum wage, and then $10.87 is considered the livable wage. Well, when I do my math and crunch my numbers, $10.87 an hour is roughly just over $400 gross a week. You know, I don't know too many people that can live off of that off a single income. If you, as the husband in your home, you're the primary, maybe the primary breadwinner, can your family live off of $10.87 in
Heck
Zeeland,
no.
Michigan?
Nope. I don't know if you
know,
can do that anywhere.
that's what I'm trying to figure out. Where is this livable at? And I have yet to see a deflation in the economy in terms of things deflating. Everything inflates. It costs more now to live in 2018 than it did in 2008. You know what I mean? Because things never go down; they go up. And I was having a conversation with someone when I basically said to them, I said, you realize the truth of the matter is you don't really own anything down here. Everybody's talking about their money and all this kind of stuff. But the truth of the matter is money is just a medium of use. It's a means to an end. It's there for a purpose. And it's supposed to be used in that manner. But when you buy a car, it's too expensive to buy a car outright. So then you get a loan. You pay all this principal plus interest, and then you end up paying way much more than what you principally borrowed, correct? And then at the end of the day, when it's paid for, your car is not worth much, if anything. So it depreciates. You buy a home, okay. You buy the house for, let's say, $200,000, which is about what they're costing if you want something nice, in this area. Okay, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath home is roughly about a couple $100,000. Okay, so you pay $200,000. Oh, does anyone have $200,000 to buy a house? No, most people don't. I don't know. Maybe you do.
No, I definitely don't. Have you seen our podcast?
I don't know anyone that has a couple $100,000. They just go out and write the check, and boom, they buy a house. Okay, so that means again, you're gonna have to get some type of loan. You got to come up with the 20% down payment, which is $40,000. Which is just, who has $40,000? I mean, really?
Nobody usually.
Exactly. You work.
The DeVosses have that. They do. We don't. They do.
No, because you're paying rents that's close to $1,000 a month plus utilities. Then you're paying for insurance that's based upon your credit. God forbid you had any issues with your credit that's being held against you, plus the crime rate that's in your area. All these unfair practices that's happening, and all these things count against you. But yet you're supposed to save $40,000 to get a $200,000 loan, and then you owe $160,000, and then at the end of the 30-year term, you paid $400,000 to $500,000. And how much does house appreciate in the 30 years? Okay, we have to do our due diligence and do the math calculation. It just does not add up. And even if you pay the house off, if you don't pay the tax bill, they'll come and get it.
Oh, yeah.
So you don't own, you know what I'm saying? You don't own anything. You're just using it for the moment. And it's a hard pill for us to swallow, but it's the truth. So for me, a livable wage is that gaining that money and being able to sow that seed, because in order for business to be fruitful, people have to buy. And in order for people to buy, they have to have money to be able to do that. I personally would rather I use the example today, like if I want to go and buy a blender, I would rather go downtown and buy it from Tierman's in town versus getting it from Amazon. And the reason being is because Tierman's is right down the street. I can get it now. I don't have to wait, you know what I'm saying, 2 or 3 days or whatever for Amazon to ship it. Now, do I have anything against Amazon? Absolutely not. But what I'm saying is, it's more cost effective for you to get it from Amazon versus Tierman's because it's 2 to 3 times more at Tierman's.
Yep.
But if I made enough money, I would rather go spend that money because that's money in my community that's paying taxes in my own state, that's benefiting my own community, making my community more viable, because we know what you put in is not rocket science, is what you get out, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't put any money in your bank, you don't have any money in your bank. It's simple as that. It don't just magically appear. It doesn't work like that. So it has to
some
be
people think it does, though.
They do.
When I was a kid, I think that's how I thought it worked at first. It's like, I could work really hard and the money would randomly replenish itself, but it didn't work that way.
But see, that was okay when you were a kid because, like you said, that's just it. You were immature. You didn't know. But now that you're a grown man, you understand how it works. So it don't, so it don't work like that. If I don't work, I don't eat. It's simple as that. It's a basic principle, but that's what it is.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Why force people to have to live in poverty just because we don't find their job worth living for? And the problem is, and I've had to have this argument before, even at my work, and I work for a 3PL, so we do cut a lot of costs because we're coming in and providing a service that's cheaper than normally the companies can do.
Right.
And we've had to have that, the discussion many times, where it's like, well, people want raises, people that report up through the ranks. And it's like, well, yeah, I get they're a material handler, but do you understand? If you don't pay them that living wage, you're not going to be able to do anything, and they're not going to be able to come to work. And we had an employee that their car broke down. They made $11 an hour. Do you think they can afford to get it fixed? No. And what happens then? They can't come to work anymore.
Right.
And the problem was they were a really good employee. They were when they were here. They worked extremely hard. But what do you do? And they said the same thing. My credit's tapped out. I have bad credit. I have a foreclosure. I have a bankruptcy on my record.
Right.
They're like, we can't get loans. They had to take a job down the street from their house, even if it paid them $4 less an hour than it did coming to work with us, because we couldn't pay them a living wage, and society doesn't allow for the securities for people to be able to make what they make and still be able to afford to live.
And that's because it's an erroneous system that is designed to keep you in lack. And again, that is my argument, because if you have a livable wage of $15 an hour, people are arguing, well, all the goods, products, and services will go up. No, they won't. If you have regulation that you say, well, a package of bologna, for example, is not going to be sold for $10.
Yeah. Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? What you do is you have regulations to prevent these types of things from happening, because what that is gouging. I mean, we've seen prime example of that with our gas prices. I mean, before George W., the gas was less than $2 a gallon. Okay, he gets in 2000, it jumps up to, at the highest peak here in Michigan, I think it was almost $6.
Yep.
And there were no weapons of mass destruction. You know what I'm saying?
They just raped us because they could.
Very interesting, and there's no real account of why this happened. It happened because there was a principal interest in oil, and it was an opportunity because you have the power to make it happen.
Mm-hmm. And
it's called greed.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes down to when is enough, and there's no shame for me. So I like to share my stories to let people know we're dealing with real life issue. And this is what I'm telling people that I'm striving to go to Lansing for to represent. Like I said, I've lived here more than 26 years. In my adult life, I have been able to sustain myself in terms of I wasn't in lack, I made some bad decisions, young and whatnot. But nevertheless, I worked for a company here in Holland. I made $18+ an hour 10 plus years ago. Same company decided we were getting paid too much. They were bought out by a parent company out of Britain. And they said they wanted us to take our pay cut. And that pay cut was going to be by half.
Holy crap.
Okay. Well, obviously we didn't agree. I mean, are you freaking kidding me right now? I work for a unionized shop. So obviously we had a contract, that they would be subjected to if they didn't pay us, if we didn't agree to change the contract. So they decided to close the plant. Lucrative plant, Chris. This plant minimum made $250 million a year annually.
Oh.
What they paid the 600 employees there a year in wages and insurance costs roughly came up to $10 million a year. Not even 10% of what they brought in annually was their overhead. Not even 10%. Now, that was just the 600 employees. Now, they had 100 plus employees that was on the management side that were non-unionized, and of course, they were getting paid more. The president was getting, I think he was getting like something like $150,000 a year, plus he was getting a stipend for his home and in a vehicle and, travel expense, all of these fringe benefits. But we, the employees, it cost them $10 million a year. But yet they took that company away and broke the contract by starting rumors, causing uneducated people to believe that there was a chance that the company would be saved, that they would just allow a third of the people to be laid off. When they knew in actuality they want everybody gone, because at the end of the day, they still got to pay you what they don't want to pay you.
Yep.
And they moved the operations from the address to break the contract, because the contract was with the company at that address. They moved the company over to Mexico, Arizona, and from Arizona into Mexico under the NAFTA agreement. No one saw that coming, but that's what happened. And all of those people lost their jobs. And the majority of them, I see them now, those same older ones that had been there 30 years plus. They're greeters at Walmart, Meijer. You know what I'm saying? They are, and they're not making much money. And right now, in most companies, they're making about what I made then 10 years ago or less. Most companies is less. Now, it was a regression in that, but the cost of living didn't go down. So how do you weigh that out?
Me personally, I think it's greed and thievery for 100LX.
Yes, because at the end of the day, you had no real reason to remove that company. It was lucrative, but because they want more money on the top, they want the investors got a 3% increase. Now we want an 8% increase. Then you get an 8% increase, you want a 16% increase. You get a 16%. Now we want 32% increase. You see what I'm saying? it's exponential. Is what it is. It's not realistic, but it's okay for you to be greedy on that side. But it's not okay for a livable wage to happen.
Yeah. And we had a similar experience this year. As a 3PL, we had a contract that we had as a company for 15 years in a large furniture manufacturing facility. And what they paid our company every year, we'll just put it this way, it barely grossed $2 million for our section of the company. The finished goods that we were selling out of the back end of it was making them 3 times that just for a small portion of it. And that's not even the cost savings we brought them. They came to us this year and said, you know what? You're going to hold your budget steady. Well, we got to give out increases. They said, we don't care. You're going to hold your budget steady. And so I'm sitting in the room with me and my boss and like another co-manager. And we're, it's kind of shocking, because how do you go back to employees and say, hey, by the way, Trump just did this whole tax thing that every company is going to make another 15%, off their taxes. And yet they want us to hold it. So our company reached in our pocket and said, you know what? I'll tell you what, we're going to back it. We're going to go ahead and give increases, and we'll find a way to cut out whatever the dollar amount is through efficiency gains or something like that. So in February, my sole purpose basically for my job was to find the dollar savings, double it for whatever it was. We hit that savings between March and July for what we had to do. Plus, we were on our way to doubling that by the end of the year. And this is hard savings. This is actual dollars I can prove out they didn't spend.
Mm-hmm.
They came to us in July and said, yep, we're going to cancel your contract.
Wow.
And we were the only plant in North America that hit our cost savings goal.
But
the
because
only plant.
Prove them wrong. You pulled a cover off of them. That's what you did.
Yeah. Something like that.
Because you exposed their flank, they decided to discard you. And that's what it comes down to, because they're well aware of the benefit. The thing of it is this is what I say about evil. You don't want people to prosper.
Yeah.
Because even like when we talked about Betsy DeVos and her being the educational secretary, what I see is a dumbing down of society. The dumber people are, the more controllable they are. And I'm not talking about in a negative, connotation. I'm talking about in terms of if you keep people ignorant and keep them uneducated, not aware of what's happening, not even having an inkling of what's going on, then you're able to maneuver deceptively in a beneficial way towards the certain group. And that certain group is that less than 1% that's really controlling the country. Because at the end of the day, it's really not the president, it's them. You know what I mean? And if you're not a part of that fraternity, you're nobody, And so, can we change the world in a day? Of course not. It's been millions of years that have transpired since the world has begun. That's what we believe. But nevertheless, whether it's been millions of years or thousands of years, it's been too many for the change in one day. But we have to do our part to make the changes that's necessary, because at the end of the day, we're trying to progress to better. And we have to get the right people in there. And people need to wake up and realize you have to do something. You cannot stand by the wayside and just be okay with it because it's the norm. It's not okay. You need to stand up and say, it's not okay. Call them out and work toward getting it right.
Amen. Am I allowed to say that as an atheist?
You are. Because you just saying, so let it be. That ain't religion. That's what it is.
Well, Christopher, it was wonderful having a conversation with you tonight. As we close the show out, tell everybody how they can support you, where they can find you at, and if you have any upcoming events where they can meet you at in the near future. Before, I think we have less than a month now before elections, officially.
Okay. So, first of all, you can go to my website at www.cbanksfor90th.com. That's cbanksfor90th.com. And when you get there, I changed the domain because it was too long. Some complaints. So right now, Google has a 404 message there. So just ignore that and just click on and go to home screen, and my website will open up. And you'll be able to see me. You'll be able to see a little bio. You'll be able to see what some of my platform items are. And then the contact information is right there on the website. And basically, CBanks for 90th is it across the board. So if you want to send an email to me, it's cbanksfor90th@gmail.com. Also, you can, through the website, you can click on the donate button, because that's where I need the help. I need donations to keep this campaign going. Every little bit counts. So whatever you can afford, it is much appreciated. We still need more yard signs. I'm trying to do some more aggressive things. I am working along. I do not have a campaign manager. So, and like a lot of people say, well, where is he at and what's going on? Well, the truth of the matter is, like I said, I'm a working man. I work 6 days a week. So
wow.
I work 6 days a week, and I'm trying to run this campaign. So we're doing the very best we can. I just ask people to be very patient with me, but I generally return the calls within a day or so. If you send me a message or whatnot, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. On October 10, I will be with Jeanette Skippers at a mental forum here in Holland at Herrick Public Library. I still have one more slot that I need to fill in for myself for town hall, so I'll just have to release that. I haven't set that date up yet. We're going to try to get one more in the grand room in the basement of the public library here in Holland. And I would like people to just, give me a call, send me an email. If you send me an email, then I'll be able to send out a mass email to everyone to let them know where they can show up, because, we need people to show up. Because at the end of the day, if I'm going to represent, I need to know what your issues are. You know what I mean? It's just, it's a fact. I have to know what's pertinent. What I've been hearing is primarily, let's get the insurance costs down. And also people are really concerned about the environment with the PFAS in the water here, especially some of the PFAS being found in the fertilizers that's deoxygenating the waters, carbon, too much carbon being found in the water here in Holland. And we don't want another Flint type of situation here, obviously. So, but, we got to be more aggressive about becoming aware and really just getting out. We've had all kinds of events and people are showing up, but not enough. You know what I mean? We want, people to show up. But the biggest thing that people can do to support my campaign is on November 6th, showing up at the polls and voting for all of us, not just me, but voting for all of us. Because yes, of course, I want to win, but at the end of the day, I can't do it by myself. So we all need to be there, from Rob Davidson to Jerry Sias in the 89th, to Heidi out in the 88th, to me here in the 90th. Jeanette Skippers is running for state senate for the 30th district, which is our area. And of course, we have two county commissioners, both Doug Lystra and, oh my goodness, her name just slipped my mind. But anyway, oh my God, I feel like an idiot right now. Well, nevertheless. And what's so crazy about I'm having a brain fart, because she and I both work together, which is insane. But anyway, we have one more candidate that's a county commissioner over the Zeeland area. So we just need everyone's vote. We need everyone's vote. It takes all of us to get it done. Hillary actually won Holland area in 2016, which I don't think a lot of people are aware of. So obviously we have a large onslaught of Democratic candidates here. So whether you're in Jamestown or Hudsonville City, Zeeland or the Zeeland Township, Holland Township, the city of Holland in Ottawa County, those are all my part of my district. Okay. So just please come on out, and we're going canvassing. We'll be canvassing again on Saturday. And Chris, I will be getting with you so that you and I can just go and do it. You just have to let me know what your availability is. And I'm for it, because at the end of the day, I'm trying to do as much as I can in the evenings when I'm out of work. Usually I'm done with work about 4, so I'll be ready to go at about 4:30. We can go until, 6 or whatever it be. Hey, I don't know about 10.
Hey, as long as they don't shoo us off the porch, with the shotgun or the pitchfork, I'll walk in the dark. I'm okay with that.
Right. And so, I don't want to scare nobody. You know what I'm saying? And show up at the house like, who is this black man on my porch? You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? I'm just your candidate for the House of Representatives.
Hold on, guys.
I'm just your candidate for the House of Representatives. Just trying to reach you. That's it. So, but I'll be canvassing on Saturday. I'll be going to the Hudsonville Fair. Yep. On October 13. I'll be there with Heidi. So please come out and see me. Meet and greet. I'd love to talk to the constituents here. And also, I think I'll be there until about 2:30. I'm going to be there at the beginning until about 2:30, because at 3 o'clock, I have a canvassing event here in Holland with Doug Lystra.
Okay.
So Jeanette Skippers and I, we've gone out, we've done canvassing, man. We're doing what we can. but we need everybody else's help. We need people like you and others to join us, in helping, because I can only do so much. But, with us doing it, we can get it done.
Yep.
Because right now, the Republicans they're feeling like they're going to win because they have the money backing, and we don't have it, but we're working with what we got.
But we have your intelligence, your wit, and you're a bankable change that we can depend on.
I love that. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Chris, for joining us. The links to his website and his Facebook page will be in the description, along with his email address. If you can help out, donate to the campaign, but at least, as we've been preaching for the last 4 months, show up and vote. Thank you so much for Chris for joining us.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. And that, folks, was episode 148. Those were my interviews with the 2 local politicians in my district. And we talk about how we can change the community, right? We talk about what we can do to have conversations with others. And to me, this is important, right? This is an important part of our show. This is an important part of the podcast. And I felt it was about time to, kind of step up to the plate. We've got, 3 weeks left? Maybe 4? I think it's only 3.
It's like 28 days or something. I don't know. It's getting up fast.
And so I wanted to continue the conversation and ensure that what we could do was talk with people that can affect local Michigan politics. In the future, we have a couple of more guests coming on. We have a write-in candidate we're going to talk about next week. Jerry Silas of the 89th Congressional District. We're going to be interviewing him. And then we have a couple more interviews lined up for the week after that as well that are more local politics and hopefully maybe a little bit on the Chris Hanna side of the tracks. We'll see, though. You never know. But to end the show, we've done this for 3 weeks now, so this is our 4th week. We have a little segment called Quick Saves.
Okay, so like the quick save is basically what we wanted to save at the end of each week. Sometimes you're flipping through some stuff and you see something cool and you're like, man, that's cool. I'd like to remember that, or maybe I'll go back and look at it. But there's not really a good way to do that. And so this is something where I just have like a little space, either using your save post on Reddit or throw a link into a note on your on an app on your phone or something. Just something you can save for a couple days, and then you pull it together for the show. And so. I don't know. Do you want me to go first on mine? Because mine's a bit raunch, but you said yours is a little bit weird too. So how do you want to do this?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. You can go first, my friend. You can go first. I talked a lot tonight.
Mine will basically take us back to some pseudo suspense horror stuff. So John Carpenter's The Thing, the Kurt Russell classic, aliens in the Arctic, or was it the North Pole? I can't remember which end of the frozen tundra, horrible it was. But basically, like an alien species gets lost, and that thing is like body snatchers, so much so that like you don't know which person it is. There's just an alien inside of one person or multiple people at certain periods of time throughout the whole thing. It's a very suspenseful, who is it kind of movie. The end of it is just a bloody early 90s, late 80s mess of like before CGI, rubber plastic monster stuff. It's just classic for what I like as far as suspense horror. Anyways, I'm flipping through the internet earlier this week and I see a thing that says The Frozen Thing, and I think, okay, why not? Because it's on enough internet. Now, I really don't recommend anyone go to that subreddit. I'm on there because I'm a horribly disgusting person. I find things interesting every once in a while on there, but you need an iron stomach if you're in this subreddit. But anyways, The Frozen Thing, we'll throw a link to it, the streamable.com thing, but it essentially takes Frozen, I have 2 small children, and so Frozen, the movie, the Disney thing, is a thing in my life. And they took the blood scene from John Carpenter's The Thing, which is the scene where they heat up a wire and stick it in blood. And apparently the alien in the movie doesn't like heat. And so a hot wire going into blood, if it's an infected person with the alien whatever, the blood goes crazy and jumps and screams and runs away. And then obviously you know which person has the alien inside them. But they did this with the Frozen characters in claymation, and let's just say just Elsa gets what she deserves. God damn it. it's beautiful, and there's fire and flame and blood and melting eyeballs. It's just everything that you would hope that would happen in a Frozen movie, in a Disney movie that never does. Well, you finally get to see it here, and I very much wanted to save that and enjoy it.
That's crazy. Yeah, I actually have not seen The Thing. I now have a date with my son and a friend of mine to watch The Thing in the next few weeks. So I've never seen it, which is weird because you think I would have, but I haven't.
Yeah, I would think that you would have, because it seems like a classic that I mean, you're pretty up to date on those. Like
most of the time, yeah. But that's just one that's, I guess, either surpassed my, viewing, or I don't know. I'm going to watch it. My quick save this week is probably weirder than yours. Yours is pretty weird, man. Wow. But mine is a little bit weirder. So
okay.
There is a Reddit thread called Writing Prompts. And I join it just because I like to read through all the different prompts. And a lot of times what will happen is people will have a conversation, and then what they'll do is they'll create a whole story. Like there's like a whole story that goes into this, and that's why I like it. It's like one of those things that I don't know.
A writing prompt is basically a sentence of an interesting topic, and then the rest of the thread is people continuing the story, right? So like someone will say like, the man on the moon first step on there, but he hears a noise behind him, or something, something like that. And
exactly.
then like the people in the comment section just write the story, and then it's just like the story like organically evolves underneath, right?
Yeah. And I was unfortunately disappointed by the story, but the writing prompt was amazing. And I want to preface this because I'm reading a book series called the Farseer Trilogy by Robin Hobb. And we mentioned it on this story, or on the show beyond this story. On our story, the show, Seller or Skeptics, whatever. We've mentioned this on the show before. But essentially there's a point where, it's basically magical, like Game of Thrones, except for, there's dragons that can talk to humans, and the dragons essentially are sentient, and, they talk about, different magics that they have, right? So this writing prompt reminded me of what you could do, because dragons can absorb, in this book series, the memories and lives of humans if they die on them or if they eat them, right? So, there's a point to it. The dragons live longer. They do all these things. They eat humans. They absorb their memories. They become more intelligent because of it.
It's like a dragon Highlander, man. That's awesome.
Kind of, yeah. Yes. So this writing prompt says, every time you eat meat, you view the entire life story of that animal until it's death. And I said, okay.
Insane.
And I was like, all right, you know what? That's fair. That's kind of like the book I'm reading. That's kind of cool, right? And I said,
whoa.
It used to bother you, but eventually you became numb to it. But one day, your wife serves you dinner, and you see the life of the woman you cheated with 3 years ago flash before your eyes. So it took this totally crazy left-wing turn. I don't know. Like, it just went off the charts, and you're like, hold on a second. I need to save this because I'm going to read it for the next 3 times I'm in the bathroom at least.
Wow, that's like a Hannibal Lecter moment there. It's like, oh, you should really tell me how you prepared this liver. It's like, no, trust me. You don't want to know.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's so cool.
Exactly. And then that's why, we talk about the quick saves, and we talk about, things that attract us. And, it is, in fairness, it's Halloween season. It's fall.
Oh, yeah.
I love horror movies. And then between the fact that this is like super dark, but also pertains to the books that I've been reading, I had to save it just so I could go back and read it while I'm on the toilet later.
Man, those are really specific, really cool quick saves. This is a good pick this time, both of us. Like, I think we're getting to the hint. We're getting the hang of this. We're having some fun with it now.
Yeah. And, you know, I encourage you to go read it. I put the link in the description.
Cool.
I won't. It's not as prefaced as yours is. It's not as dark of a thread as yours is. But I won't lie and say it isn't pretty dark.
The people that have seen the movie will appreciate it way more. People that have seen Frozen will think it's funny to watch Elsa melt. But, like, I mean, you kind of need the context for it to be interesting. So, like, I would think younger viewers who haven't seen it probably won't be like, They'll be like you a little bit. I'd be like, man, I should probably go see that movie. But when you watch that movie, you're going to be like, oh, my God, the 90s were, like, so weird.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it might even actually be earlier than that. Like, it might be, like, late 70s, early 80s. Like, this is an old movie by millennial standards.
Exactly. As we close the show out, thank you all for joining us tonight. Support the politicians we talked with tonight. Support their campaigns. Help and go out and vote. Bring people in office. Let's get rid of this red wave and move on to a blue wave so that eventually we can either have a green wave or whatever color progressive will become. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. We had an amazing episode. We'll be back next week with more politicians, more politics, and a discussion with Heather and Jerry. Thank you all so much for joining us, and have an amazing afternoon, or night, or morning, depending on when you listen to us. Have a good night, folks.
You've been listening to a presentation of Cellar Door Skeptics. Check us out on Spreaker. CellarDoorSkeptics.com